Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. This time, we're heading to ancient Greece. We're gonna explore the world of the captivating world of Hera. You guys sent in a Wikipedia article on Hera, and yeah, we're pretty excited to take a look at it with you, see if we can unearth some interesting insights.
Yeah,
Yeah,
always fun to dig into these Wikipedia articles.
yeah, definitely.
Interesting, so often, we think about Hera and we think about, oh, she's the jealous wife,
Oh yeah, yeah. That's kind of her main thing.
just Zeus's jealous wife.
Right.
But when you really start digging into the article that you guys provided,
Mhm.
it really shows. I mean, she's a lot more complex. She's a multifaceted figure.
Right. And like we always focus on those conflicts she has with Zeus, right? And
Hmm.
all his lovers. But, the article mentions that she's also like the protector of marriage and childbirth.
Oh yeah.
What did those roles like what kind of significance did they hold in ancient Greece?
Um, they were very important. They were like the foundation of ancient Greek society.
Yeah.
Because like marriage and childbirth were really would ensure that families would continue, that the communities would continue.
Uh-huh.
And ultimately, the city state itself continued.
Right. Right.
And so, when you think about Hera protecting those institutions, it really shows that she is very much tied to like societal stability, order and stability of the polis itself.
Right, right. So it's not just like a petty thing, it's really a deeper meaning.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. It elevates her from, just the jealous wife to, like you said, a guardian of the whole societal order.
Hmm.
And the article, it touches on her origins, and it kind of suggests that she's connected to goddesses from the Near East, and maybe even has some Indo-European roots. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's really interesting. It shows like how ancient myths, they evolved over time,
Hmm.
and Hera, she didn't just show up one day on Mount Olympus.
Right.
It's possible that she came from older traditions, more primal, maybe even like more primal female figures, and she kind of brought aspects of those goddesses, into her own persona as she evolved over time.
Right, right. So she's bringing in, pieces of the past
Yeah,
of the older goddesses.
exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like tracing her lineage back.
Yeah.
One of the things I noticed in the article was that one of her epithets is cow-eyed.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Mm.
What's the significance of that?
Yeah. So cow-eyed in Greek is boutisi, and it's a really interesting epithet, and really gives us a clue about her potential connection to like earlier goddesses that were associated with cows.
Okay.
And those goddesses, they were often associated with things like fertility, abundance, and even the earth itself.
Oh, wow. Okay. So she might have been some sort of like Earth Mother type figure before she became, this majestic queen of the gods.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So I mean, that just adds like so many layers to
Mhm.
her character, to her story.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating.
There are some other epithets that I noticed in there too, like goat eater,
Oh yeah.
white armed, Thalcinia, you know, just to name a few. And it seems like every region of Greece had their own way of kind of like worshiping her.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All those different epithets, they show that she was so ingrained in Greek culture,
Mm-hmm.
and each one probably reflects like maybe a specific attribute or just some local variation in how she was worshipped,
Okay.
or maybe even a particular myth that was associated with her in that region.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't just one size fits all. It
Right.
really shows her influence
Yeah.
went way beyond Mount Olympus, and it really reached individuals and communities all throughout the Greek world.
So she was like this multifaceted presence,
Uh-huh.
kind of embodying different aspects depending on where you were and who was worshiping her.
Exactly.
That's cool. Speaking of places of worship, I was looking at the article and I was really struck by the descriptions of her temples. Like some of them were they were massive and they were so old. Like the Heraeon at Samos has got like this incredible, forest of columns.
Yeah.
What'd you think about that?
Yeah. It's really something. The scale of these temples and how early some of them were constructed.
Hmm.
I mean, it really shows how important she was.
Mm.
Even way back then. And it's pretty fascinating when you compare these huge temples to, the smaller house sanctuaries that the article mentions
Right.
that were also, dedicated to her.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like you see this progression architecturally,
Right.
and it kind of hints at how her significance evolved over time.
Right. So it's like we're seeing her rise in prominence
Hmm.
through the structures that were built in her honor.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great point. But these temples, they point to her grandeur.
Yeah.
But the myths, I think, really reveal a more dramatic, even volatile side of Hera.
Yeah, that's true. It's in the myths that you really see her personality come to life.
Mm-hmm.
All the passion, the conflicts, the intrigue.
Right.
These stories, they've captivated people for centuries.
Mm.
I mean, they give you this glimpse into a world, where the gods and the mortals, they all kind of interacted together,
Right.
and destinies were shaped by divine intervention.
And sometimes those interventions were pretty driven by her emotions.
Mhm.
The Wikipedia article goes into some of the most famous myths, and she really comes across as a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, it's true. Her actions in a lot of these myths, they're often portrayed as being motivated by jealousy or a desire for revenge,
Mhm.
especially towards anyone that was, involved with Zeus.
Right.
But could there be more to it than that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Is it possible that her actions, even the seemingly negative ones, were driven by like a deeper sense of duty?
Hmm.
Like a need to uphold some kind of divine order?
Yeah, that's a really compelling idea.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at some of these myths
Yeah.
and see if we can, uncover some of those deeper layers of meaning.
Yeah, let's do it. So the article goes into like, some of those famous myths that really show just how complex she is. And one that really stood out was the story of Heracles. Just his very existence as Zeus's, son from a mortal woman. I mean, that just seems to provoke Hera right from the beginning.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the myths even, tell us about how she tried to stop Heracles from, even being born in the first place.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. She, made sure that another one of Zeus's sons, Eurystheus, that he was born first, and that, he would ascend to the throne instead.
So it was like a real like rivalry, like almost like a vendetta, that played out over generations.
Right.
But I mean, thinking about her role, as the protector of marriage and a legitimate lineage, Heracles being born from, an affair, that would be a direct challenge to her authority.
That's a great point. Yeah, it might not just be, her personal jealousy that was driving her, but like a real sense of duty to maintain the divine order, which Zeus seemed to be constantly trying to, mess up.
Right, right. Yeah, like he's the one messing everything up and she's trying to put it back together. So it's really a different way to look at it. It reframes her actions as like defending that sanctity of marriage
Hmm.
and the proper line of succession, even if her methods are, a bit extreme. I mean, sending snakes to kill a baby, that's a bit much, isn't
It's
it?
pretty dramatic, yeah. But even as a baby, Heracles showed that he was strong. He strangled the snakes that she sent to kill him.
Wow.
So it's like from the very beginning, he's destined to kind of defy both Hera and fate itself.
So he's like this super strong baby. Does that make Hera back down at all?
No, not really. Throughout his life, Heracles, he has all these trials and tribulations, and many of them, she's behind. Like she's the one that makes his 12 labors, the famous 12 labors. She makes those even more challenging. Like she's constantly testing him.
So it's like she's shaping him into the hero he becomes.
Mhm.
It's not just punishment. It's like she's pushing him to become better.
Yeah.
She's his adversary, but she's also like his, unwitting mentor. It's like she's making him prove himself.
Hmm. Speaking of, proving yourself, there's that conflict she has with Leto and her twins, Apollo and Artemis. That's another good example of her power, and just how determined she was.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Leto, she was pregnant with Zeus's children. And, so of course she becomes a target of Hera's, anger. The article mentions how Hera, she forbids Leto from giving birth on any land or any island. It's like this, this geographical curse.
Wow. So like, how do you, I mean, defying a goddess,
Yeah.
Especially Hera. I mean, that seems impossible. How could Leto, find any place to give birth? Right. Well, I mean, there are, there are different versions of this myth.
Hmm.
Some say that Hera even kidnapped Eileithyia, who was like the goddess of childbirth.
So she literally held hostage, like the process of childbirth.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a pretty intense situation.
But I guess, a goddess can't even control, fate.
Right.
Because as we know, Leto finds refuge on the floating island of Delos.
That's right. Yeah. Despite Hera, doing everything she could to stop her, Leto gives birth to Apollo and Artemis, two of the most powerful Olympian gods.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show you that, even the best laid plans, even for a god.
Right.
I mean, things don't always go your way. The story of Io and Argus is another good example of this, like that power dynamic and how, Hera's plans, don't always work out.
Yeah. She was a priestess of Hera, right?
But
But she got involved with Zeus, and that, of course, brought Hera's attention to her and her punishment. What do you think about her transforming Io into a cow? I mean, that seems like that's a pretty harsh sentence.
it's pretty wild. I mean,
Yeah.
the Queen of the Gods turning her rival into like a lowly animal,
Right.
but I mean, thinking back to her role, as the protector of marriage and she is Zeus's wife. I mean, could this transformation be like a symbolic punishment?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think it really emphasizes just, how important she considered marriage to be, and any threat to it was a very serious thing. But the punishment doesn't end with, her turning her into a cow.
Oh no.
She wanted to make sure that Io was kept captive. So she tasks Argus Panoptes to guard her.
Mm.
This giant with 100 eyes,
Wow, 100 eyes.
always watching, never sleeping.
So it's like a metaphor for her constant, vigilance, like her scrutiny.
Right, exactly. But even this, seemingly foolproof plan. I mean, Zeus was pretty cunning, and he finds a way to get around
Where
it.
did he do that?
He sends Hermes,
Oh, Hermes. Okay.
his messenger, who's also, a bit of a trickster,
Mm-hmm.
to slay Argus and free Io. So, I mean, this story, it's a really good example of that. The constant battle, that power struggle between Zeus and Hera, and oftentimes the mortals get caught right in the middle of it.
Right. Right. Yeah, they're the pawns in this chess game. And even with Argus gone, I mean, Hera doesn't give up. She sends a gadfly to torture Io,
Yeah.
and drive her across the world. I mean, that really shows just how angry, Hera could be.
It does. And it also shows, how unwilling she was to let anything go.
Yeah.
But it also highlights Io's resilience. I mean, after all of that, she eventually does find peace. And she even, kind of finds a measure of divinity in Egypt. She ends up, being transformed into a goddess.
Mm-hmm.
So the story, like a lot of the stories with Hera, it really shows this complex, this interplay of power, of punishment, and ultimately, transformation.
Right. It's like it's not just like an entertaining story. It's like an allegory for life, like the struggle between order and chaos and duty and desire and just the power of fate.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing how these myths, from so long ago, they still resonate, with us today. It's
Yeah.
like they have something to say about, human nature and these like timeless themes of love and betrayal and power,
Yeah.
and fate. And I mean, it makes you realize that Hera's story, it's a lot more than just, a jealous wife getting revenge.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
and that's, what we've seen in this deep dive, right? That she's this multifaceted figure.
Yeah.
She's a protector of marriage and childbirth. She's a guardian of societal order.
Yeah.
And she's, she's a powerful force. And I think even her conflicts with Zeus and his lovers, they can be seen as her trying to uphold this divine order. This order that Zeus himself is constantly disrupting.
Yeah, it's like she's constantly trying to, put things back together and keep things in balance. When the world is constantly being thrown into chaos by, other gods or even mortals, it challenges us to think about, the deeper meaning behind her actions.
It does. And I think it's also important to remember that even, this Wikipedia article that we're looking at, it's just one perspective on Hera. It's based on, ancient sources. And those sources, they were written by people
Yeah.
who had, their own biases, and beliefs
Yeah.
shaped by the time that they lived in.
Right. So we always have to, keep in mind that our understanding of Hera and really any, figure from the past, it's constantly changing as, we discover new things and we re-examine,
Yeah.
the old interpretations.
Right, exactly. And every generation, kind of brings its own new perspective to these myths, and
It's
that's what makes mythology so fascinating.
Yeah, it's a conversation. It's an ongoing conversation. It makes you wonder, how our view of Hera, how that's gonna continue to evolve,
That's right.
in the future. What else is there to discover?
Yeah. I mean, who knows, right? Maybe we'll find more evidence of her connection to those earlier goddesses, or maybe we'll get a better understanding of her role in ancient Greek society
Yeah.
and how women worshipped her.
Yeah. Well, this deep dive has definitely changed how I think about Hera. She's not just a name in a book, She's a real complex person
Oh.
with this amazing story, and she's still captivating us, thousands of years later.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, we encourage you, the listener, to keep exploring, Kara's world. Delve into the myths. Look at those ancient sources. Think about the different ways we can interpret her actions. And as you do, consider this. What if, instead of seeing her as just, this jealous and vengeful figure, what if we saw her as a defender of cosmic order, a protector of the sacred oaths and the bonds that held society together? I mean, how would that change how you think about her? And what does it say about how myths can, challenge us and help us understand the human condition?
That's a great question to think about. I hope this deep dive has sparked, your curiosity and inspired you to go and learn more about Hera and ancient Greece. And until next time, keep searching and keep questioning and keep those ancient myths alive in your own mind.
Tell us what you think about this episode. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.